franchise as big as the MCU, there's a couple of skeletons in closets that I think we should talk about. The uneven plotting of Marvel's Secret Invasion was apparently matched by its behind-the-scenes production troubles. So Secret Invasion was supposed to be one of the most significant shows in the MCU, reintroducing the Skrull, paving the way for Captain Marvel and the Marvels, and debuting one of the most powerful characters in the entire MCU. So how could this possibly fail? Well, an expose in The Hollywood Reporter revealed multiple firings and studio tensions that kind of happened during the making of Secret Invasion scripts and even during its filming stages. So originally, writer Kyle Bradstreet was tasked with writing the series, and then Marvel Studios, about a year later, was like, we're gonna go in a different direction. They replaced him with Broken City writer Brian Tucker for all screenwriting duties. So pre-production eventually continued, but by mid-2022, production dynamics had worsened to the point that, according to one insider source, it was weeks of people not getting along and it erupted, everybody was butting heads. These tensions eventually led to Marvel executive producer Jonathan Schwartz stepping in to keep Secret Invasion on track. By September, Marvel had fired, reassigned, or replaced multiple line producers, unit production managers, and assistant directors working on the series, including one of the initial episode directors, Thomas Bezucha. And for what? It wasn't great. Sadly, The Marvels was a flop by MCU standards, and there was a lot of hullabaloo behind the scenes that didn't help. The film's release was delayed twice, initially swapping places with Quantumania for its February release date, and again from June to November. Even with a double delay, the film needed extensive reshoots due to poor early screenings. And with a $250 million budget and a failing reputation, Marvel desperately needed The Marvels to be a smashing success, and it wasn't really. Shockingly, it was also revealed that director Nia DaCosta reportedly left in the middle of post-production to go work on a different film starring Marvel alum Tessa Thompson, and it took her all the way to London for shooting. According to the source from Variety, it raised a lot of eyebrows at the studio, because apparently if you're directing a $250 million movie, it's kind of weird for the director to leave with a couple of months left to go. So Hawkeye went from just another hero with a bow and arrow to an Avenger with an incredibly deep backstory. Throughout the years, we watched him protect his secret family, cope with losing them after the snap, and eventually get chosen to headline his own show on Disney+. But all of that almost never happened. While filming the first Avengers movie back in 2012, actor Jeremy Renner repeatedly asked to be killed off so he wouldn't have to reprise the role. He was frustrated that he spent most of the film as a brainwashed minion instead of a fully formed character. Thankfully for us, the creatives didn't listen to his requests, gave him more opportunities to grow, and now Hawkeye is pretty fleshed out. Seeing writer and director Joss Whedon's name on a superhero project was once a good sign for the fans. People were especially psyched for his next project after he worked on the very successful 2012 Avengers film. But then things started to go downhill when it came time for Age of Ultron. Behind the scenes, Joss Whedon and the studio disagreed about a lot, specifically a couple of story beats, which are kind of important. Marvel executives were also kind of concerned that Joss Whedon was giving a bit too much attention to developing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and scheduling conflicts between a lot of actors made Whedon have to rethink certain scenes. And these production hurdles likely contributed to the Age of Ultron's mixed reception. So for most people, taking on a company as big as Disney is way too frightening to imagine. But Scarlett Johansson was like, try me. The trouble started after Disney released the very long-awaited Black Widow solo film in theaters and on Disney Plus simultaneously in 2021. Scarlett Johansson sued because she claimed less money came to her because the film was available to stream when it was supposed to be a theatrical exclusive. However, Disney initially called her out for not considering the effect the worldwide Panini had on their plans. Marvel bigwigs like Kevin Feige were not happy with how the company communicated with Scarlett. And although the actress and the studio eventually worked things out, the lawsuit kind of brought her tenure as Black Widow to a very dramatic conclusion. So this is a situation I've talked about a lot before, but you can't have a Marvel drama list without Ed Norton. The Incredible Hulk was released shortly after Iron Man, but it didn't really receive a positive response when you compare it to Iron Man. It was a mostly underwhelming affair and has become something of a black sheep in the Marvel Studios family, rarely referenced, and it's kind of ignored in the wider MCU. Ed Norton had a really bad reputation for being difficult, and after taking American History X away from Tony Kaye, the actor tried to do the same with his director's version for The Incredible Hulk. Now, despite everybody initially allowing him to arrive on set super late, rewrite whatever was being worked on that day. The actor was really ticked when his contributions didn't really shine through when the movie was being edited. As a result, he refused to promote the finished cut, and he got the heck out of there really quickly afterwards, which was an absolute PR nightmare at the time. Now, the director was somewhat supportive of Norton's plans, but he was kind of stuck in the middle, and he's also spoken out about how difficult it was working for Marvel Studios. It's been long rumored that Ike Perlmutter, former chairman of Marvel Entertainment, butted heads with a lot of notable Marvel figures over the years. And there were some suggestions, if you will, that he didn't have faith in female-led films. So once upon a time, Bob Iger hinted that Ike made it difficult to get films out with diverse or female leads. Black Panther and Captain Marvel were specifically named as projects that Iger really had to push for. Over the years, the company was restructured, so Fahey no longer had to work directly under Perlmutter. And since then, Captain Marvel, Black Panther each grossed over $1 billion at the worldwide box office, and their massive success was the best way for Fahey and Iger to prove everybody wrong. Famous for his quirky comedies like Shaun of the Dead and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, director Edgar Wright had people very excited when he was attached to bring Ant-Man into the MCU. It was also very good news to hear that he had been working on different versions of a script since like the mid-2000s, so before the MCU really got off the ground. Wright's enthusiasm for Ant-Man made it very shocking to hear that he left production just a couple of months before filming was set to begin. After Wright and Disney released a joint statement citing creative differences as the reason for his departure, he was replaced by Peyton Reed. And while Ant-Man was still a success, a lot of folks still have questions. What could have been? Natalie Portman is a name I don't think anybody would ever want to mess with. But in 2013, somebody did, and it led to a big gap in the MCU. The original plan for Thor: The Dark World was for future Wonder Woman 1984 director Patty Jenkins to take charge of the Marvel Studios sequel, and Natalie Portman had played a huge role in making that happen. She was super excited to make a Romeo and Juliet style movie exploring Thor's relationship with Jane Foster. But Marvel Studios said absolutely not, and instead went for a conventional blockbuster with a couple of Game of Thrones moments. That didn't work for Jenkins, so she bolted. She left the project, and Natalie Portman was like, I'm out, but sadly for her, she was actually contractually obligated to return. Well, with that, she was kind of done with the MCU until she was convinced to return for Love and Thunder, and technically a little bit of Endgame. While we're on the subject of Thor: The Dark World, because this was a troubled production from the start, yeah, it was a box office hit, but it's not exactly certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. So when Game of Thrones director Alan Taylor was chosen to step behind the camera, everybody was like, okay, let's get that Game of Thrones sort of flavor in Asgard. But like I said before, it was a very generic blockbuster set primarily in London, and before it even hit our movie screens, Alan Taylor was speaking out against the changes that Marvel Studios had made. At the premiere, he distanced himself like the heck away from the post-credit scene that James Gunn had made that teased the Guardians of the Galaxy, being like, I am very happy not to take responsibility for that. He didn't appreciate having another filmmaker's work added to his own, and he really made it clear in the years going forward how much he hated working with Marvel Studios. He said the experience was particularly wrenching because I was sort of given absolute freedom while we were filming, and then in post, it turned into an entirely different movie. So that is something I hope never to repeat and don't wish upon everybody else. So yeah, he didn't come back for Ragnarok. And that's all for today, folks. I've been Alexa. See ya!